Welcome to Apartment 103. This is your host, Robert Suarez. This week, we are just going to go over of why the show was created and how. Last week, we had a guest on, Tim Ruiz. He was on our first episode, and thank you again, Tim, for coming on. It was a great conversation, and I tend to have you on more. We get more in depth of the things you do and more of what's going on in Indian country. So we're going to jump right into why the show was made. Well, I wanted to have a podcast. I always wanted one of my own, talk about local issues and kind of like my life growing up. I'm from the Rincon Indian Reservation, grew up here. It's located in San Diego, California. If you don't know where Rincon is, it's a small reservation and it's a little fingernail of the world. But I've learned so much being out here. Along with that being said, I like to talk about my experiences of growing up as a kid to a young adult. You know, a lot of other kids can relate to my life. I'm mixed, I'm Native, and I'm Mexican. And growing up, that wasn't, I guess, the best thing. But to me, I never knew that growing up. And we get more into that as time goes on. This is something, again, just quick, brief, why the show was started. Also, having conversations with other indigenous men along other reservations, we were able to sit down and talk about things and issues and have a conversation, which is really hard to have, especially in our area. Conversations about deep issues, deep-rooted issues. And that was another reason why I wanted to start the podcast, is so I could have conversations with other people about topics that aren't touched on really, or we try to stay away from because they are difficult to talk about. You know, there's some things in our local area that I wish to change, and maybe this is a way I can do that. Maybe having my voice in your speakers or in your household can start a conversation between you and your family, and maybe some of the guests with their information can spark something in someone younger to achieve whatever goals and dreams they're reaching for. See, the show isn't about me, it's about exposure. How can we expose the youth to things that the older generations can't? We have to find a connection. And whether you like it or not, social media is where it's at. So, some of the topics we talked about, which can be tough, is mental health. That was one of the key conversations we had. And that's a very, I think, touchy topic, especially with men in the area, because no one likes to say, hey man, I'm not okay. Hey man, I need some help. I need to talk to somebody. I need to open up. And I want to show the youth and maybe my peers that it's okay to go to your friends and say, I need help and I want to talk. So that's another reason why I wanted to start the podcast, is so you can feel that you're able to have conversations about issues you may have going on up here. You're not, trust me, I'm part of a group, Break Cycle Warriors. It's a great group, bunch of men. We sit down and talk about our issues, and you'd be surprised about how many people are going through what you're going through. And if they're not, how many people are willing to stand beside you and get through what you're going through. It's something healthy. It's good medicine to have conversations. It's good medicine to let off that weight you carry. And that's really what this is about. Who can show that? Who can have that? I don't think I'm the master of it, but I plan on having people coming on, teaching me while they teach you, and me just expressing about how I feel about certain topics. Another reason why the show was started was really talking about it's hard to talk about. It's hard to bring up. It needs to be said. I'm just gonna go out and say it. Men that get passes in our local area. And when I mean by passes, I mean they do things that we all know is wrong. And it could be women too, but for the most part, I'm talking about the abusers. I'm talking about the physical, the mental, the verbal, the sexual abuse. I'm sorry I didn't throw a trigger warning out there for some of you who this may spark something in you. But that was a topic we talked about, is how can we do something for the youth? How can we do something for our women to feel safe? Why is it okay? And what I mean by okay, I know the community doesn't like that. What I'm saying is, there's some pedophiles who are able to come to community events, laugh and joke with other men or their groups when they know what's going on, and it's okay when it's not. But because it's not you, it's not a big deal. We all could depend on the county, and we could depend on the state, and we could sit here and claim that we're sovereign, but we don't take control of our own communities when it comes to certain things like this. I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm not saying I'm perfect. It was just a tough conversation to have with each other and a group of men, of looking back at ourselves, like how can we change this? How can we make our community and our young ones feel safe? How do we change for the future? I mean, where do the kids have to go to be safe if something happens like that? Who do they turn and talk to? I'm not a victim, but I know of victims of sexual abuse. I've had conversations with them. And how do you do that? How do you go somewhere and say what's going on? Again, we're just touching lightly on this subject, but this is something that's what started this show. And I just want to put that out there, that this show is a safe place to have conversations. This show, APT.1O3, is an open-minded show to have a discussion about issues within our communities. And it doesn't always have to be serious. It could be fun. We could promote something. We can talk about, abuse, awareness. I keep saying that word, abuse. I think it's just heavy in my head right now because it really bothers me. But we need to bring more awareness to a lot of other things too as well. We don't like the stereotype of alcoholics. We don't like the stereotype of tobacco abuse, drug abuse. And then here we go, right down the lane to drugs. Fentanyl. How many dealers do we know out there? Whippets. Back roads full of these metal whippets. We talk about we need to take care of our land and our people. We can't even take care of our own area. And I'm not saying all of us. The very few and the ones we know. But that's the point. How do we hold or start holding each other accountable? How? This is the kind of conversations I kind of want to have. These are the conversations I kind of want to move forward with. And it's kind of weird that we just jumped right in it, hit it hard, but that's how you got to do it sometimes. Just look at it in the face and say it is what it is. And coming together, I think it can happen. We had a great example of the outsider who came down to the Paula Cemetery, and gosh, what she did was it blew my mind. At first, I was so angry. And I needed to take some time to collect myself and think of something or a way I could respond, because people were asking me of my response. So seeing everyone from different reservations, when I say communities, I mean reservation locals, from different reses coming together, giving their input, coming in hard. You're not welcome. You don't belong here. It's disrespectful. It's a disgrace. Why can't we do that with the ones that get passes now? Why can't we do that with the ones who are feeding drugs to our brothers and sisters and watching them pass on? We know kind of where they are. We know where it's coming from. And I can't say we know. I don't even know. I have an idea. But I think as a community, we need to start putting our foot down, and we need to start changing the way we handle things. And it doesn't have to be violent. I'm not saying the witch trials where we go and hang these men or women or what it may be. But we need to start setting standards and morals of this won't be allowed anymore. We need to start changing the motive. I've known too many women who've been beat up and hide it. And I know too many families allowing it. And it's hard to accept. I couldn't imagine being a parent of that. I'm not a parent, so I can't really speak highly of that. But I'm sure if I had a conversation, it'd be hard. Even family members, it'd be hard. But we have to have morals. We have to have standards. And I may not be saying this perfect. I may offend a few. And I'm sorry if I do, but at the same time, it needs to be said. And something needs to happen about it. But again, these are just opinions. Everybody has the right to their opinion. And this is kind of how really the podcast idea came to be. Talking about my life, lessons I've learned, being mixed, issues we have locally, how we want to change, people killing it out there within our communities and putting them on the spotlight. I want to create a platform so everything can be discussed, but it's safely discussed. We don't always have to agree on anything, but can we have a conversation? Because at the end of the day, it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's just about understanding where the other person's coming from.